The beginning of us.
Feel like something is rapidly transfigurating in my core of being, an awakening of sorts.
The beginning of us.
A raw conversation hosted by your main frother, Billy Otto.
Pulling apart what it means to rebirth, to rewild, to be curious and to rechild. I had an incredible conversation with my brother Kyle Lionhart in his home in Byron Bay. This is how it went. Strap in, enjoy the ride. Hey fam, welcome back to the beginning of us. Here I am with Kyle Lionhart, epic friend, singer-songwriter, surfer, father. He's winning hearts all over the globe and he's become a blonde brother. The spiritual Gandalf of Monumental, the king of transparency, the sage of vegan awareness, and the eco-warrior himself. Kyle, so much love for you, man, and you've changed my life. You were my greatest gift of 2019.
Bro, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, man. It's a huge intro to follow, that's for sure.
Dude, it's crazy. Just thinking back to our friendship from like the last 10 years and how things began. Do you want to just share to the world, how did we first start interacting?
Dude, I love our two different stories here because you remember it in such a like poignant way, which is really nice. And I feel kind of bad as a friend because you remember it so well. But I just remember this guy coming into my house one afternoon.
How old were you?
And I must have been would have been 21?
21.
20?
Yeah.
Oh, 20 or 21. Actually, it would have been younger. It would have been 19.
Yeah. I was about 20. Yeah, 22, 23. So yeah, I'm two and a half years older.
Yeah. So yeah, it would have been close to 90. Anyway, yeah, I think we had a mutual friend, and you came into the house, and apparently I was playing some tunes. And this is the funniest
Mumford
way.
and Sons.
I love it the way that you've told me how it went down because I didn't remember it, but now it's just like classic. It actually sounded like who I was. Back then, I was just like playing some Mumford and Sons. I was like, "Hey, Bill, check out my song. Check out the song I've been practicing." And then apparently he offered me some trail mix, some organic activated trail mix. And I think I took a handful and I started eating. I was like, "Man, is there peanuts in that?" And you're like, "Yeah, bro." I was like, "Oh, dude, that's so toxic." And started spitting them out in front of you. And I'd only known you for about 5 minutes.
Mate, I've been to northern India and the Vedas told me not to. What it does to your...
Makes me pitta aggravated, bro. So aggravates my pitta, so I got to stay away.
So classic. And you had this really short haircut and really bleached blonde hair. I don't know if it was natural or not. Yeah, bro, he came in from Watergoes, tried to do an air and just cut myself. Such like a transitional grom.
Dude,
it's so good, man. But you haven't lost that young froth. And, bro, before you became this incredible singer-songwriter and public figure, you were born. And tell me about that. Tell me about your roots, your heritage, your legacy that you came from.
Man, it's, I think before going into I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's like generational heritage, like my father was a Polish Jew and he was went through prisoner of war. He was a prisoner of war, made his way out of one of the camps and made his way to Australia. I had my dad and, I don't want to go too deep into this kind of generational trauma, but, so with that, I'm just going to give him that background. So with that, I had this father that was quite stoic and not very in tune with his emotions, but very confusing because he was this amazing artist and, struggled with drug addictions but at the same time, like high functioning, someone that still took drugs every day. He was still high functioning in a way and was able to hold down businesses and, but he was quite absent. But a musician and an artist still at heart. And, so coming from that background of where his father was this stoic, all you got to do is work and make your way in this life because, the shit that I've been through is worlds away from what you can. So don't take this life for granted. And he was kind of rogue. He was kind of the black sheep, he was just like, nah, I'm smoking weed and I'm going to be, I'm moving the Northern Rivers, getting out of Melbourne and being an artist, that was kind of, he took a completely separate path and which was a beautiful thing, because I think if he didn't do that, if he wasn't a black sheep of his family, then, I would have never been brought up in this kind of, I wouldn't say, broken home, but this kind of abstract home, I think that's the best way to describe it. It was an abstract home, and nothing, I didn't have a classic Australian upbringing. My dad was never into footy. I was never introduced to sports really. He was like really not really. Yeah, I remember trying to get into soccer, and he was just like so off trying to take me to soccer. And
wow.
So it was always up to mum. I mean, he was pretty absent as a father, trying to work through his stuff, and he was relying on drugs to kind of get him through. But at the same time, I'm still so thankful for him, and what he gave me is music. That was a gift that he was able to pass on to me. And
it seems from our conversations, from what you've told me, there has been a bridging and a reconnect in your relationship with your dad, and a deep core healing. Which when I heard about that, man, like it nearly brought me to tears. Like I see it in my own journey, and I desire that more in my journey too.
Oh man, I think so many men can relate to this journey with trying to reconnect with your father. Yeah, like I didn't, it wasn't abusive, and I mean, really, everything's relative. Like it's relative to our own situations, and again, my father was pretty absent, but yeah, there's been this journey to reconnect, and that was the journey through me becoming a father as well, and wanting him to be a part of my my son's upbringing, and I really wanted to have a connection with him because after you get past your sort of teenage angst, all that anger and testosterone, like fuck the world, you rebel. There's this other light that comes in, especially me becoming a father quite young. I was just like, all right, I want to bridge this gap, And so that was huge for me. It wasn't only healing for him, I think, in a big way, but it was healing for me. I was being able to reconnect with him, and I think that he's seen how much he actually gave me through music, even though he never gave me lessons. And every time I asked him to teach me something, he'd just be like, "Oh, fuck off, Kyle! I'm trying to do something,"
For sure.
But he was there, the presence 100%. Was there, and every now and then, he'd get super high, and he'd invite us kids into the room, and we'd all play some music, and there's those little memories that I attach myself through.
I remember you told me, Kyle, that there was a time when you told your dad that you loved him.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of an initial, path, and like sowing a seed, and it was a bit awkward. But tell me about that moment, that feeling.
Yeah, dude. So that was huge, and I so to my recollection, me and my father never exchanged those words ever. And again, when I had kids, that blew my mind, because I couldn't imagine not expressing myself verbally, let alone physically, to my kids, and so I was like, there's a huge disconnect there, and it's not his fault, because I'd never given him the capacity to say the things that he needed, and that kind of broke my heart, and it's not because I was putting it on me, but just because the man had been never been given the capacity, the emotional capacity to express himself, and again, coming from his very stoic and emotionally unavailable father, he just was doing the best that he could with the knowledge that he had.
It's crazy, man, because I think like your dad compared to my dad, a pastor's kid, grew up as a missionary all over Australia and New Zealand, wanted to study medicine, became an architect, and just kind of put his head down. Like my dad definitely has those sterile foundations in a way of like being a bit disconnected from, as a baby boomer, a systems guy, worked for the government until he retired, has a really good super, kind of standard in a way. But your dad sounds a bit more like a woke dad, like a woke baby boomer in a way. Like he leaves the fucking system and he moves to Byron, Mullum in like the heat of like the hippie movement.
Yeah.
But it would almost, you'd almost assume that he would have that connect and like, and
well, that was the
those
confusion.
Intentions.
Yeah, that was the confusion with it, he wasn't that classic drinking beer on the couch, watching the footy type, the kind of cliche stereotype dad that we hear of, especially from our era. So yeah, there was that confusion with it, but again, like it's just like when you don't know how to connect with yourself and connect with your emotions, then you can't allow anyone in. So yeah, there was just that. I just took it upon myself to be like, well, I think we bring these souls as in children into our lives, and they're here to teach us something. And I was just like, I'm here to teach my dad something. I wasn't given all this like information and this work that I've been like given to kind of go through and wanted to go through it, this kind of endeavor into into self and endeavor into, inner work. And I was gifted that through, meeting my partner Annabelle, and her upbringing was very spiritual and a lot of inner work and stuff. I was just like, man, this is like the universe writes these things, and it's just like we're given them. So that was kind of that journey. I was like, well, this is part of my teaching for my dad, is just like, I'm going to be a man that shows him that it's okay to like be emotionally available and be able to speak with our heart on our sleeve, and so I just took it upon myself and just called him, and I just like went through 10 minutes of this awkward conversation about the weather and him fixing the fence and what kind of wire he used and and then
every other detail of anything,
just skipping around, this. and then I just said I love you, and it took him by surprise for sure. It kind of took him back, and then and then he turned around and said, I love you too. And that was the beginning, the beginning. And now, it's, like 7 years on, we have such a great relationship. We cuddle, we tell each other we love each other every day. He actually comes to me and really like pours out. We've had some family troubles with my sister and stuff, and I think if people have heard my music, they can hear there's certain songs like Sweet Girl that tell that story, and he comes to me for an emotional outlet and for conversation that he's never been able to have in his life.
A place of non-judgment.
And
he would know that you see him. With all the blessings and all the curses, but you still embrace him, and even with that crazy generational gap and that hurt, there's healing in that, bro. And I think, I remember coming to you even like 3 months ago at Woodford, just feeling this weight on myself of just like, bro, I feel like I still had this anger towards my dad and this disconnect, and had a really weird Christmas experience. I just want to call it and just press delete and just fuck him, just find a new dad somewhere else in the Byron Shire, just levitate away. But you kind of called me out and were like, bro, like, no, there's still hope. This is my journey, and you just got to be love to your dad.
Yeah,
and
man.
It was good, man, to hear those hard lessons from a good mate, and just like,
and we're here for them for a reason. They had us, and like, your path, dude, it's insane. It's just like the deconstruct, the moving away from them being a minister, and like so much of this conditioning. And your father looked upon you as just like, unaccepting of what you were choosing, this new path. But you're doing that. It's just like you could have just stayed down the line, in the middle of the road and done everything your father wanted you to do, become an architect like him, But it's just like, and he would at times hope that he had a son like that, to be real. But dude, we're here to teach. Like, kids come into our lives. You've come into your father's life to teach him, and it takes work. I skip past so much of the work. It's just like, I said I love you and he said it back. But dude, there's years of work that's gone into that, and tears and so many you're shivering. It's so uncomfortable, like it feel like you want to like throw up. You feel so uncomfortable, the things that you're saying to your father, it's just like, there's that. And there's, you can't skip those steps.
And before we move on from that to another chapter of your life, like I want to kind of just sit there for a second, because I think we don't fully sometimes take this abandonment, these pains seriously. And I think the Aussie way to deal with this is like, I'm just going to go wash my car or go watch the Broncos play, or just make your life busy, find fishing. And there's all these things that are great. There's nothing wrong, no judgment for all these things, but still the power and the vulnerability it takes to go to the core and like, why am I reacting like this? And you would see it in your own partnership with Annie, that things come up and it's like, where did this come from? Why did I speak in that way? And I've seen in my own relationship with Chrissy, there's just these irritabilities and the reactivities that come out, and it's like, oh, it's connected to when I was younger, I think. And the more that I seek professional help, the more that I see that stuff from that happened 15, 20, 25 years ago still impacts me today from my relationship with my family.
15 years into a relationship with my partner, it's just like I'm still dealing with shit from when I was 7, 8 years old, like childhood stuff still coming up. It's just like the work is endless, but the payoff is immense.
I love that, man. And you were talking a little bit about masculinity, and it's something that I think we started sharing about ages ago. I recall a moment in my life, I think it was about a year and a half ago, when Chrissy and I came to, your show at in Marrickville, Factory Theatre, but the small room.
Yeah.
And it was probably, honestly, dude.
Oh, well, you jumped in and did sound for me. 'Cause
Yeah,
my sound guy is just, they gave me a guy that could barely speak English and couldn't do sound.
Sorry,
I struggled
Donald
with him.
No, but yeah, he was
was
kind of
classic.
thrown on because old mate wasn't there, and he's like, "Bro, I've never used a desk like this before."
He was such a beautiful
So
human, but he was
lovely.
just struggling, and the language barrier was just struggling. Anyway, that was a
Yeah.
funny moment. You had
And
to
like
jump in.
literally, I jumped on this big desk and all these digital things. I'm just like having a crack, and like, because we just re-met again on the streets of Byron, like pretty much 10 years after the first time that we'd hung out.
Yeah.
Reconnected over social media after that, but you got me to come to your show, put me on the door, and we were there. And I was just there with Chrissy, just a little bit just blown away and taken by your vulnerability and your transparency about your journey, particularly talking about mental health. And I think, man, like the thing about being a singer-songwriter and a performer is that we create these beautiful metaphors and analogies, and people get lost in that abstraction and these stories that we're sharing, but sometimes we can even hide a little bit behind the art. And there's been particular people in my life that have said, Billy, it would be good if you could share about what these fucking songs are about sometimes. Your deep, stoic, abstract mind. And not everyone is thinking in these awesome Epicurean philosophies. It's like, what is tangible to now? And if that song was about a struggle, talk about what that struggle was. Explicit.
Yeah.
And I remember you were so specific about, this is a song about my own mental health struggle. And I was like, fuck, like, that's so vulnerable. And to hear someone in their later 20s just being so real, and you didn't talk about it like you're a trophy boy for mental health recovery. You're like, oh, this is like a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think the room was just really quiet. It's the first time I'd ever seen you play a proper show. And yeah, man, I was really inspired by that. And that helped me to share more of my journey as a performer too. But it's so close to your heart. Can you unpack a little bit about, that mental health journey?
Yeah, dude. Again, this this comes as like the journey back to self, and I got to a really dark place where I was contemplating suicide for a good 6 months, and this was before I started playing music professionally. I was just kind of doing it in my bedroom and stuff, and I just it peaked for me in both like my decline in my mental health and my where I was trying to envision my life. It was just like I needed to get out of what I was doing, and so I just called it. I was Annabelle would have been probably 3 months pregnant. We were just about to have our first kid. We were 21 years old, and I was just like, babe, I can't be a carpenter anymore. I can't do this job. I can't offer you that security, because the man that I would be if I stayed there isn't the man that I want to become for my son. I don't want to be that father. And so yeah, that's where it began. I literally just quit within like a couple of days, because and she was fully supportive of it. I told her that I was really struggling, and obviously she was just like, well, this you have to do it. Music is what you love doing, and it's your passion. You need to change your life, because there's kind of no other option. So yeah, man, I took it upon myself to do that and started pursuing music. And then, it took me years to get to the point of processing it, accepting it, saying that I had depression. It was weird. Like, I was contemplating killing myself, but I didn't say it. I would never say I'd had depression. I just said, I was just feeling really shitty. And, I was just like that. There was so much work there for me to really accept and process that. And that is so dangerous. If you can't just accept and own that you have depression, then you keep suppressing those emotions, and that's when it manifests into this ugly beast that overtakes you, and so it took years for me to get there. And so, a big part of it was actually, seeing other artists and other men, because, the men in my life, the mentors in my life weren't very healthy, like I was looking at my sister's boyfriends, my older sister's boyfriends, and they were just, these very, very shut off men, abusive to my sister. And I was kind of looking up to them, and that was where I was coming from, as we naturally do. We get away from our father, even though my father wasn't, a statue of health that way. So, I was in this whole lot of confusion, as I think a lot of men are. And yeah, so I kept journeying, kept questioning, kept pushing it. And part of me getting to the point where I was at that show and shows previously of me standing on stage, quivering in my voice because I was so nervous to say it every time and almost ending up in tears every time I talk about it was part of my journey. It was almost a selfish thing because I knew as soon as I could say it out loud, if I could say that I'd had depression, then there would be no shame around it. And the shame would again, fall away because I'm like, how it's all exposed. How could I be ashamed of it now? And so that was big for me. And seeing other musicians I'd seen in the past also touch on it was just like, that was huge for me, a moment for me where I was just like, if I can bring myself to saying it on stage, if there's one person I can help in that moment to just be like, I'm going to say it out loud, or I'm just going to, tell my mom or tell my friends or tell my partner, to my wife. I think accepting it is one of the first
incredible,
steps.
man, just with collective consciousness. Like even in that moment for me, I was just like, fuck, like if Kyle can say it, like I can say it. Mm-hmm. And we all just felt this deep, visceral connection to you in that moment that, we can all have fun at shows, but there's particular moments that really bring people into that soul journey. Like it wasn't ego looking at like a sexy man on stage. It was like soul connecting with soul.
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling so empowered. It's incredible to think that the ripple effects that these conversations can have. Like
it's amazing, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, I had a show in Brisbane where I had a guy that had just been discharged from the army, and I talked about this stuff at my show, and I talked about my journey through depression, and I was out there doing a signing as I do, like connecting with fans afterwards, and he came up to me and just went to thank me. And he couldn't say a word, and he just got so choked up. And then I just held him for the next 20 minutes as he like sobbed in my arms, and it was beautiful. I was just like, that was one of the most beautiful, humbling moments I've ever had in my whole life. And that was like, that just reassured me.
Army,
yeah, he was this big, massive, burly dude, like wanted to just come up and just be like, thanks, mate. He just tried to, and he just broke. And it was honestly one of the best moments I've had in my whole life, career. And that was it's like a huge reassurance for me. It's just like, I need to keep speaking up. I need to keep pushing myself to keep being more and more honest. It's like, as we do as artists, I'm still hiding. Yeah. I'm still hiding. I'm still writing in metaphors. I'm just like, I'm trying to get better and better at it. But there's just some things that we're just not quite ready to say out loud. Yeah, dude.
A year and a half ago when Chrissy broke up with me, like just months before our wedding, dude. It was like the heaviest time of my life, man. Like, and I had issues with my old car and just everything was just going bad. And what made everything worse was that Chrissy had called it. It was pretty abrupt for me. But then I had to like go up to like the Goldie into Byron and then play at my cousin's wedding like a week after.
Yeah.
And I felt like I still wanted to do it, but just happened to like just the vulnerability that it was just to be with my family over there. And just, it was just so weird. And everyone's asking about Chrissy and like, dude, what kind of ring did you buy? Like, what are you guys doing for this? And it was just like, it was such a weird and painful and brutal couple of weeks. But it was so bizarre from the things that you'd shared to me or just shared to the crowd. Like, I actually felt this impulse to call you. Yeah. And I did chat to you that week actually when I was heading to this wedding, but yeah, there's this weird inkling of like, oh, maybe I could talk to Kyle. Like, like sometimes I think for our personalities, we do reach out to people and some people just go into themselves, but I'm the kind of guy that I kind of throw lifelines to people that I sense good energy with. And I remember telling that story to you like 2 months after when I was kind of healing and you were like, bro, like, you should have just called me, man.
Yeah.
And I think, why is there so much fear within our culture? Like, why can't that be a conversation that is more normalized?
Yeah.
Just like, we talk about every other thing, every other detail, every other chick that we've been with, whatever. And
dude, particularly in men, right? It's, it's I think this is bred through our culture, through Western cultures, and Australia. Australia's, I think, even I mean, get certain parts, but Australia's really bad for it. And I mean, we think back to because this is where we start reflecting on our childhood and through all our years, especially our adolescence, we test the waters. We go to say something to a mate. These mates that we make in school, and we kind of open up, show a little bit of vulnerability, and they go, "Oh, fuck off, poofta," something like that. It's just like there's this reaction.
Don't be a girl.
Yeah. Don't be a girl. Don't be a pussy.
Yeah.
And it's and then we form these armors, these shields. That's when we start creating these layers.
Yeah.
And that's the point where we just like it takes so much, like work to be able to get to a point where, like, man, I'm feeling really down. I might call a mate and open up to him, because all our like fight or flight, like, I don't want to be shamed, I don't want to be I don't want to be known as a pussy, I want to be this burly man that everyone thinks I'm holding my shit together. That all starts rushing in from this one traumatic moment in our life that we kind of blew off at the time, because we'd echo that as well. Like, our mates would say it, and then a mate would say it to us, and it didn't quite feel right. We'd be like, "Oh, shut up, you pussy." Like, we'd start echoing these things. And so, we're built into this vicious cycle. And so, when we come to a moment like that, where you're just like, I should have just called Kyle, instantly, like, we have these these like little ringing bells, these alarms go off, go, nah, that's the worst thing I could do right now.
Yeah, that was a shame. I was just like, oh, what's he going to think? Like, am I just like going there too early in our friendship? There's just all these judgments that I made, and like, oh, that's silly. Like, I'll just listen to my Bon Iver and just cruise, and just cry to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I want to go there. Masculine conditioning, or, I don't like using the word a lot, toxic masculine, or that saying, because it's thrown around so much. It's pretty loaded, but just, I don't know, tainted masculine or the fractured masculine. Yeah. It's just kind of like, because I actually love being a man.
Dude, it's
It's
beautiful.
so good. And I didn't for a while when I was getting woke. I was just like, oh, the sacred energy, the sacred feminine, and the toxic masculine versus the sacred feminine. But I actually fucking love being a man.
Yeah.
And probably every day I'm just like stoked to be me. I celebrate being me. I'm overjoyed to have the opportunities that I have. I start with gratitude. But I haven't always felt that way. And I think growing up in Newcastle, we grew up in pretty similar kind of social surroundings of just kind of, I grew up more in like a middle-class suburbia. You're a bit more rural, middle class, a little bit lower class. I don't know if it was like,
it was low class.
But it's just like, for me, I think, again, all those conditionings. I grew up playing rugby league, though. Like, I went down that route. I was a bit more normal in that way, even though I was hyper religious. But, when it comes to male vulnerability, and it's something that we're really going into now, I just want to address that. Like, was there a time in your life where you did confront those voices and those conventions and constructs and those social matrices that you found yourself in of like, I've got to be tough? Somehow you believe this narrative that you should be a chippy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
And which is fine. Like, I wish I was better at woodwork, and all these things, they're all great. And even my motivations for being a surfer initially were like, it was a power thing. Like, it was an alpha thing. Oh, surf bigger waves.
Yeah.
Nearly hurt yourself, but don't be a pussy.
Yeah.
I think I started becoming more open to a vulnerable conversation as a man, like in youth group times when I was 15 or 16. But I did have eldership from my church that were encouraging me to be open about struggles, which is really cool, like an epic element of church. But you didn't have that background. And so was there a moment where you saw that some of these conventions weren't flowing for you anymore?
Dude, again, it's like I was a pretty late bloomer, I was still hanging on to it with every thread. I was just like these fragments were kind of just falling off me, like, unintentionally, and kind of, I was out of my control, and I was trying to pick them back up and like glue them back on, and but yeah, it still came to it's a classic. I think it says in Steve Biddulph's book Manhood, is a man never thinks something's bad until his wife and kids are backing down the driveway, and that's the point that he will go, okay, I think something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I ran that classic narrative, that man narrative, where I was just like, I waited until I was thinking about taking my own life before I started questioning whether, these conditionings on me have put me in this place, or whether I was just depressed. And it was a combination of both, but like it was kind of bizarre, because I went through this kind of, spiritual growth, I guess. I went on that kind of journey, what's it called? I don't want to say journey again, but you know, I started reading these like spiritual books, and I went to India and started doing meditation and yoga, and went to ashrams, and you know, I thought I would get something out of that, but you can't skip the steps, you know. Like I was trying to go straight from like this, you know, broken masculine, you know, this atheist, you know, like had and tried to skip all the steps in between and become these kind of like spiritual elite, you know, levitator, like just the soft guys you see that seem so in tune with themselves. And I mean, often they're not. That's another trigger that I can talk about. But, but you know, there's these just kind of like gentle men that kind of, you know, just can control their emotions, you know, and be able to be aware of what's happening inside them, where I wasn't, you know. I was just kind of, I was either like, you know, freaking hard out taking drugs and drinking, or I was kind of angry and just like angry at the world and angry at my job. You know, it was kind of just, I was on this pendulum between, you know, these two, just kind of like on top of the world, but in a fake way because of like the substances I was taking, to the point where I was just, you know, and then the come down after that and going to a job that I hated. So, so yeah, there's just like, I think the questioning just for me to start looking into it and start wondering why, it's just, it came with that really dark point of depression, and just like I needed to start questioning more. And again, the journey through, you know, reconnecting with my dad, realizing the breakup between him and I, and how I'd kind of missed out on what you had, you know, these youth groups that you had through church, and talking about your suffering, and you know, having these mentors that you can see these kind of healthy men, you know, that are, you know, healthier men that are kind of more connected to themselves and their emotions and their head and heart. So yeah, it was just with the lack of that, it just took a lot more work and a lot more time to discover. And you know, the music was a huge one that helped me through that. I was lucky. Beautiful. I was lucky that I could have music there, and
as a channel,
and to write, to put word, like, you know, for me as a man to think of an emotion and write it down on a piece of paper, you know, like how lucky am I to have that expression? You know, so many people don't have that, and so that is, you know, music's kind of saved my life in that way.
Yeah. I feel the same.
Yeah.
Because, like some of the listeners wouldn't know that you had a little boxing season. Didn't win a fight. You had a Corolla with a carbon bonnet.
Yeah. Big exhaust.
Womp womp. Yeah, man. You've kind of tried a few tricks, you know, of the alpha struggle.
Choosing,
you know?
the mask, bro. I was just trying to see what masks fit, you know. I was just like,
and it's so beautiful to reflect on, like, not that we're in these woke states of being now, but it's just kind of like far out, just the ego trying to find, you know, a thing, you know, like a new shell, a new mask. And I think, is there a way just to culminate some of those thoughts, dude, when it comes to you know, masculinity and vulnerability, mental health? Is there anything that you could say to men right now, just in this moment, just over a couple of seconds?
Dude, I think the most important thing is just not trying to get rid of the shame. The shame around us having, you know, emotions as like a start, you know, is just like trying to suppress that. And two is just like feeling off. You know, it's just like we're feeling just like we can't function. We're meant to be this functioning, purpose-driven, you know, hold up the household. You know, it's just often we are. You know, we do that, but we can also break down. We're allowed to. You know, it's just like there's no shame around it. It's just like, as men, we hold a lot. So do women, but as men, we hold a lot. We feel like we have to hold a lot, and you know, every now and then we're going to drop something, and you know, we've got to let it out, and we've got to express it. We've got to speak to someone, you know, whether it's your partner or whether it's a psychologist or whether it's your mom or whatever you feel most comfortable. It might just be a stranger, because when you have that weight, we hold so much weight. If you can give a little bit of that weight to someone to hold with you, it's a whole lot easier.
It's beautiful, man. I want to segue a little bit to, firstly, just acknowledge everything you said, man. It's so beautiful. Music to my ears. It's like a hug from
Echo chamber.
Echo chamber, yeah, a little bit. I'm also aware of that. But yeah, man, like it makes me feel in a cool way, just a bit less weird. And like, you know, like you definitely inspire me as a mate and as a brother to kind of just, you know, to stay with the work and that we're not like radicals just for enjoying to talk about it. Like, because like I literally, friends that are listening, I get off a plane, Kyle picks me up, we go on a writing session, we just talk about relationship stuff or like a struggle or like a frustration with the industry. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's real. Like we talk about the surf and stuff, but like I've really appreciated that we kind of go there as brothers, you know, we go to war with, you know, dissonance in our lives, but especially with something like porn.
Yeah.
I want to just go there for a second because, you know, it's a real chat that we've had before. And again, something that you've kind of empowered me in is just a bit of self-control and, you know, coming from fundamentalism and not losing my virginity till I was 30. And, you know, I had like a weird, kind of beautiful, but a bit, you know, tortured suppression in my life sexually. And my penis wasn't my friend. My scrotum was my enemy. And just kind of like, I wasn't talking about my ego, like my scrotum, like I just got to like box it away. Like we were literally dreaming, like even when I was in a Christian band when I was younger, like if there's only a way to put our penis in a box and just put it in a locker somewhere until we got married. Yeah. And so you're exposed to stuff a lot younger than me and kind of went on a bit of a journey. But like for me, like, you know, porn kind of crept up for later in my 20s. Like it was started when I was like young, you know, exposed when I was 8, got into it when I was 16, confronted it through Christianity when I was 17 and called it and started a different path. But you know, it just kind of crept up after like an 8-year hiatus, you know, later in my 20s. And I think there was heaps of like pressure of just like semen just coming out of my ears. Didn't know what to do because like my body was so wired for sex, didn't experience it. But still feeling that even though when I'd look at porn, it just didn't sit fully right with my soul. And I struggled to, you know, have a chat with my sisters after looking at porn or like, you know, speaking in front of a school about, you know, good values and like, you know, living an inspiring life of legacy. And like, it was just hard for me to really feel flow even with music. And we talked about this, but I want you to kind of just, some of your reflections on your own journey and wrestle with porn. And
yeah, dude. And I mean, so mine was pretty different to that. I mean, I was exposed pretty early. I think I was like 11 or 12. And then, you know, I got pretty into it when I was like 13. And, you know, I kind of, then I'd kind of go off it for a few years and kind of forget about it. And then it'd creep back in. But I never really had that voice, you know, that kind of like where you've come from is this struggle with sexuality because of this shame around the Christian side of it. I never had that, you know, I was just like, it was just kind of coming in and out of my life at certain times, but it was always a huge basis of how I was intimate, you know, like I based my whole, because I never had a conversation about sexuality.
What about sex ed in schools?
Sex ed in schools, you know, like you put a condom on a banana. That's as far as it goes, you know, like it's so taboo. Even the PE teacher, like they're not fit out for that. They're just like, this is a banana, you put a condom on it, don't have sex. It's just like, that's it, you know, so they're just going to like skip over it. Let's go outside and kick the ball. So yeah, dude, like sex ed was just, you know, fuck. So
and there was no spiritual aspect to it too. There was nothing about a connection of souls.
Yeah. And there was no...
And it wasn't really honouring of women. I didn't feel like there was just like...
Exactly.
You know, you're going to have these hormones, you're going to grow some hair there, you're going to get an erection, but like also treat a woman with respect.
And my memories of sex ed was like watching the Pretty Girls and how they'd put a condom with a banana and we'd all the guys would be going, oh yeah, she'd do it on my dick, all right, you know, like it's just so toxic, you know, and this is, you know, a room full of boys that have just been watching so much hardcore porn that they just think that like, you know, these girls just want to start touching their penis, you know, like it's just, and take like play out these ridiculous scenarios that we're given on screens. And yeah, dude, so, you know, but I struggled with years and years going in and out of it. And I got to the point where I had a lot of shame built around it, you know, like it wasn't so much shame around the shame around me, you know, like I felt weird. I'd never had that. I never had that kind of like conscious at the back of me being like, oh, I feel weird speaking to my sisters after it or whatever. It was more so just, I had this mask on myself where I was trying to be a better man, but I couldn't commit to it, you know? I was just like, I had this mask of like, I'm putting this to the world and everything else is secretive. And so porn was one of those. And, you know, so I spent years kind of like, Annabelle asking me about it and I'd just like, I would just lie. I'd just say, no, babe, I don't watch it. But she could tell, she's incredibly intuitive, and like, when we were being intimate, I was absent, and that was huge.
Yeah,
like
going for it, but absent.
Yeah.
Soul to soul. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't realize, that's just because that's just all I've ever known. And, then she ended up finding out and called me out about it. And then I just had so much shame, it was such a hard thing to let go of. And then once I did, and I was just like, all right, this is unhealthy, and this is still part of my journey through this masculinity and who I was as a man, and depression. And so I let it go, and I started seeing things differently. I started noticing my intimacy. I started viewing women differently, because this was a big part of it. Was just like it was like the cognitive dissonance, Totally. It's like I wanted one thing, but my morals were one thing, and then my actions were something else. Classic cognitive dissonance. And it's like, so once I was aligning that and being that conduit for just like new energy, like the new to come through, and something a little more pure. I mean, pure, I don't want to use that word, but something just less tainted, where it's just like, no matter how much you can justify it. And it's kind of funny, us having conversations.
Justifying porn.
Justifying porn. It's like, I think, it's funny, our conversations we've had with some of our mates around this, and the way that they justify it, and it's just, I was there, I did that. I justified it in my head. And, this is like, for some people it can, sure, it has its purpose. I agree to some point it might have its purpose once. I don't think at a young age. I don't think it has a purpose as a young age. It just doesn't. It creates a really unhealthy view for young boys and what women should do and how they should perform. Expectation. So for me, it was just like, once I had to do years and years of it. I was pretty much watching it non-stop since I was like 12 years old. And so I had to shed so much of that and work out how to be intimate again. Because all I was doing, I was coming in and I was kind of just looking for that end goal, but not connecting. And that's what porn is. It's like the end goal. It's just like they basically treat the woman like a piece of meat to get what they need.
Yeah, and
then
she's got to have certain dimensions, certain size boobs, certain size butt, like certain color skin. And then you're just consuming this body.
Yeah. And so no matter how you look, no matter how you justify it, it's affecting you on a psychological level.
For sure.
And so,
there's so much research on that to back up everything you're saying and what it can do to a relationship, man. So I want to go back to Annie called you out, bro. And to a lot of, male partners out there, like, it's a heavy moment. I've experienced it, in the last year, I just like... It's so humbling, and I think there is weird shame. Like, part of you doesn't want to approach your partner about it because you don't want her to be broken. Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing.
We kind of feel like we want to protect them, but then we're lying, and it's kind of like, what are you really doing here?
Yeah.
So,
but I think when you do acknowledge and when you beautifully do profess, like what's been going on, it is way more honoring. Of your partner, and although it's still hurtful, it doesn't hurt as much. There's less suffering because there's honesty. Yeah. There's connection. There's vulnerability. Yeah. And I think a girl is way more keen to go on that journey with you, like trying to, porn rehab to get past it, and to, some of the core problems, you know, and like, I think, part of my porn struggle went back to, some of my ancestry being involved in it, in that world, and just... not being taught, not having a ceremony to kind of really teach me about it from a young age and how it was destructive and how it was taking me away from my own soul flow. Yeah. But the blessings now of like confronting it within myself and really just coming back to my innocence again and how it changes my relationships with women so much, changes my relationship with Chrissy.
That's what I want to break down is just like for other men that are listening that, I'm also like you as I get triggered about, soul and energy and all these words we throw around and purity
holding space.
Yeah, holding space, triggers, like to make things, because I'm the same on this. I don't usually like these words of how I try to make sense of it, but I'm still, when I see other people or hear other people say it, I'm just like, ugh. So for me, like just to kind of break it down and just make it more very like a vision is, for me, it was just like, I could see my partner for who she was. Like that was just like, that was it. That was the first time in the 6 years we'd been together that first time I seen for who she was after like 6 months of not watching porn. and it was such a bizarre feeling. The sex was so much better. Like I honestly can say that. It's just like the intimacy and the sex was so much better, and it just got better and better because once you can kind of see them and be more vulnerable rather than these secrets I was holding, and this kind of like absence over me, this kind of wash of imagery that I've had in my head. It was this whole new level of being able to just like melt into the moment, yeah.
And then the goal of your sexual experience not being an orgasm,
Yeah.
being present with connection.
And the orgasm's so much better when it does come. But dude, and to add to
Beautiful.
that is just like, to add to all of this is watching that, I've struggled with this as well, is the Instagram game. You can end up down the clickbait of beautiful women as well.
Yeah.
Even
if
I've
it's not
been there.
porn.
Yeah,
Even
it's
if
not porn.
it's not just looking at a girl in a bikini, it's like
It's still arousal, It's still like this
still
imagery.
dopamine.
And it's still like these brushed women and these we're still gaining these expectations in us. And, I think that's something we have to watch as men too, is with these devices we have in our hands. We just have this availability because it's, again, it's another justification. It's not porn.
Yeah.
That you can't, it's not like hardcore porn, but, you can get to pages where they're still naked and they're just like, it's still
Just
such an
little emojis
arousal.
over the bits and pieces.
Yeah, there's still a huge amount of arousal there, and
Yeah.
it's I think it's just something to watch and be something that you're aware of because it's
Yeah.
something that I've needed to look into. Because
And just on that as well. Oh, sorry, finish what you're saying.
Oh, no,
looking,
go.
looking into because something you need to look into because
something needs to look in because it's basically like another justification. Yeah, that's where I was getting to. Is just.
And I think even the neural pathways, because I remember when I was single last year and we were on the road for the first time, you're like, dude, I'm not looking at porn and I'm not even like chasing up girls that are following me on Instagram from shows. Like I don't, you might have, 50 new people, 15, 100 new people that are like coming on the Kyle journey. But, it's a thing when I think you're a musician to kind of like, oh, these follows, pretty profile.
Yeah.
And just to kind of even just get that chemical release.
Oh, dude, well, that's it. Like, that's
It's
been
just
part
like,
of the
I feel
struggle.
admired and
Yeah.
and there is suddenly this weird fabricated intimacy that you kind of have with this image of what this person could be like. And then you go down these neural pathways of like, oh, but if I was a bit more loose, I could have this, for me, it opens up a Pandora if I really go. And I've just had to kind of even be a little bit legalistic within myself and just go like, I don't need to do that. It doesn't need my energy.
Yeah.
How
And you
can
have to watch it, man. Like,
Yeah,
that's it. It's just
yeah.
like, it's like the temptation is huge there.
Yeah.
Especially in those moments when it's just like, these pretty girls following you, just like, wow, like they even start a conversation and it's just kind of like, oh, who am I talking to? And you click down it and it could be very innocent at the start. But once you start seeing more and more pictures, you're just like, wow, this is like, they're super attractive and, and then you could just leave it at that. That could be fine.
Yeah.
And that's totally cool. It's just like, oh, wow, they're super attractive. Yeah, cool. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But it's just like not chasing it,
Yeah.
And because I think us as men, we're just like,
dude, and I think when you are for 1 hour of someone's Saturday night, you are deified for that moment, and there could be like, I remember a time in Victoria for us last year, we played like a pretty big show out by the coast and it was an epic night, but for some reason there was heaps of attention and froth, obviously towards the Kyle train, but it was a weird, heaps of sexual energy in the room and like girls were really quite, intoxicated.
Yeah.
And I remember stepping onto that dance floor. We walked back into that room where we played.
Yeah.
And because we just been the main act of the night with the Kyle Lionhart band, there was this sense of power.
Yeah.
And I think even acknowledging that within myself of like, wow, I can acknowledge that people or girls really like cherish, looking at me right now and like they feel this attraction. And I think just being real even with that, because that's what can happen in music and the arts and entertainment is that we do get deified as a demigod for a moment. It might just be for one smash hit or for a tour or, one festival moment. But it's weird how us as Homo sapiens, mammals, Homo duplex, whatever we are, but we suddenly attach ourselves to things. And I've done it to people that I looked up to as well. But just trying to watch that and not manipulate a girl, which is so freaking easy to do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you can let your mind even wander there, even if you don't act on it. I'm like, oh, I could walk away with that person, Cindy and Sarah. And, Cinderella.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
and you've done like hundreds of shows in the last couple of years, and there's so many opportunities where you could have like done a sneaky.
Yeah.
you know, letting your mind go there, letting your pants go there, you know, just.
Yeah.
But what is that voice that's calling you back to that ground of being and to that higher path?
Dude, I honestly think if I was doing what I do now 8 years ago, I probably would have slipped up. You know, I probably would have ended up with another woman or something like that. But because of this, like, I just had this imagery of porn, and you know, the end goal wasn't about intimacy or anything else. And so, you know, that grounding came through again. Is just like is finding my way back to that connection with my partner, and especially that intimate connection, because, you know, that's all lust in the moment. You know, it's just like that. You can use that and manipulate that moment of that demigod because you've just stepped off stage. But for what that would be, is I just know that this, like, the end goal would not be the same as like, waiting till you get home and just being with your longtime partner, and the intimacy and the trust and the vulnerability you've created with that human just wouldn't even come close to one night with just this pretty girl that's standing in front of you. You know, and I know that as like a core belief. You know, I know that to my absolute, like, you know, bottom of my gut. And so knowing that is just it's an easy way to navigate that now. And it's just, you know, just know that, like, in saying that, there's, you know, I still like being out the front, being, you know, and going and doing the signing and you know, just talking with the fans and you know, you be a little bit more, you know, you're a little more charming, and you kind of play with the energy a little more for sure. Yeah. But as in actually, you know, like taking it or even teasing the idea that they could ever be.
We don't want to advocate becoming like monastic about playing shows. And just getting really religious about it. Ned Flanders, you know, get off stage, back to the green room, read your Bible. Like, it's very much like we love having a good time.
Yeah,
and we meet so many people on the road.
And I like that. I like that energy, and I like that transferal, you know, and so it's not, you got to enjoy every element of it. But there's a point where and I mean, maybe there's not. If you're single and you want to do that, maybe you do. Maybe you need to go through that to discover, to get to the next point.
We don't want to become like perfectionists, like Puritans here that are calling out this higher highway.
We're just saying our journey. This is where we've ended up. Sure. These are the things that we feel, but maybe it's not going to be the same for everyone.
I think when it comes to playing shows, though, like, I want to think that I'm approachable by everyone as well. And I'd want to feel like I can give time to the supermodel who comes to buy a shirt, and to, you know, nerdy old mate Smitto, you know, who, you know, is also buying a CD, and just, you know, like, I try to, like, just still see, you know, to still see music and performing as like a playground, and like you're meeting family. Like, I try to lean into that, and that works for me. Yeah. And there's not one way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I get the same payoff to being like this kind of flirtatious, charming way that I kind of hold myself, you know, with my fans. It's not, you know, it's just not with the ones that I find attractive. I do it to men. I do it to, you know, it's just like mums, you know, like the older fans. It's just like, it's just a way that I feel comfortable presenting myself, you know, and I like that energy. It's a good exchange. Yeah. It's just like, it's really nice. They've connected to my music, and here we are. And I was just like, I get to be the person that my best self in front of them, you know, and to be honest, it's like, I do have a sense of love to them, because them coming to my show means so much. You know, it's just like, it's still a crazy thought to think that people are paying money to see me play these songs. So it's just like, I actually do have a lot of love for them, and I think they deserve like a lot of energy out of me. Yeah, man, you channel so much love on stage, man. I can tell that, you know, like, you genuinely are so grateful that people come to your shows and what you exchange. It's a beautiful dance. Yeah. The crowd is part of that, and you acknowledge so much, you know, your appreciation for that moment. But I will say that, you know, there have been a few sneaky cougars that have like grabbed your butt or grabbed my butt, and we're in the same room. We call them the cougar sniffers. Okay, fam out there, it's like, for some reason, it's happened maybe a dozen times that we've shared these sniffer stories. And it might be the odd, more intoxicated auntie who's like 41. She just comes over and just a little bit of, just a little on the back of the neck. Yeah, just leans in and like, it just kind of overpowers the situation. It's kind of abrupt. Like, you might be talking to someone else,
and there's just this fragrance of this mama coming along. It's like skin on skin. She might hold your hip or something.
Yeah,
or
definitely. Always hold the hip, and it's a little bit down towards the ass. It's
So
like
you're a
meant to be
little
on the
bit
hip.
sensitive.
Yeah, and it's just like,
whoa.
yeah. And the rub comes in.
The
If you
rub.
stay there for too long, the rub goes further down.
And it's followed by compliments, or they might just go for another sniff.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they might be buying a t-shirt. So it's like, but we always come back with these sniffer stories. But bro, tell me about quickly new music that's coming. Everyone's pumped. You just dropped a new single on Friday. Everyone's pumped for this new sonic Kyle journey.
Yeah, dude. It's like I feel this year's. I mean, it's a strange time with the whole COVID thing, and it allowed me to kind of do a little more musical like endeavoring. I think.
Well said.
And so I'm just kind of going through my catalog and writing these new songs with like me and you and our friend Paul Rusk. We wrote a great song together that isn't the classic Kyle Lionhart song, but we all agree that it really suits my vocals, and we wrote something really like powerful emotively, which is we love.
It's incredible about this song because I think really the bones of it came in the first 2 hours. It was pretty quick, spontaneous, intuitive, and I think we all felt really safe in that vulnerable creative context.
Yeah. And so I just think this is a really nice time this year, especially, is to like start releasing things a little bit different to what people are usually hear me release, because I was just like, if people have been asking me this, I have those Kyle Lionhart acoustic, folk sad bangers for days, like I got loads of them on my computer that I'll be releasing in between that I love as songs, but also want to kind of, pursue some different realms in the musical sonic realm. So it's a really exciting time for me, to just be going there and creating some music that excites me more than ever. And my fans, that song that I released on Friday, it's just like my supporters really loving it. And they like it, that it's a little bit different because I've given them the whole album just in November last year. Like it hasn't been long since I've released music, so I just gave them a whole album of like Kyle Lionhart acoustic, guitar songs, and so I feel like they're pretty nourished at the moment. So I'm re-releasing some things a little bit different, not crazy different, a little bit different. I think it's I think it's really nice for them to just be seeing me expand a little.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that as a creator, as an artist, that you're really open to kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, and nourishing the family and fans that you have, but really being open to those new sonics. And do you want to just open up a little bit just on how that creative process usually happens within you as an artist? How do ideas come to you, and how do you develop those ideas?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like everything is written on reflection. I'm not one of those artists that write within the shitstorm. Like that's never been.
I'm the same.
Never been my thing. I just can't. I actually become very stagnant in the shitstorm. I can't actually channel anything or put anything down. It's just like I just feel too much of a storm inside me. I feel too off axis. So. Yeah, it starts with the reflection. It's usually after something big that's happened and I've finally kind of grieved or processed the emotions, and then it just comes up. This is one of the the struggles with having other responsibilities. Is like, for me, it's just like I just get these creative outbursts, and often I can't jump straight into them. So it's like straight on the iPhone, like quickly with the guitar.
Love it.
Just or in the notes, I just write down like a lyrical thing just comes to me. And then I usually spend time at night and just build on it, and this, for me, it's like, I've only had maybe 3 songs. It's kind of come in like a couple of hours. Most of it's a bit of a labor of love, just like I have a line or a chorus or something, and then I have to build the rest of the song around it. But I love that too, because I really love to play on words, because for me,
you're definitely a poet.
Yeah, I don't really write things so literal all the time. I really like to play on words, and the word could just be one word within that sentence that I want to get in there. Because when I said that word, or when I sung that word, created like I always gauge my songs of like, if this song's kind of making me cry when I'm writing it, then that's like a good song. You know, it's just like there's so much emotion behind it, and they're usually the songs that do best. You know, it's just like the songs that are making me, you know, really feel moved. And I'm having that with the song that we wrote. You know, it's just like
you have a real creative aptitude. I think you write quite prolifically. Word just meaning you write a lot, and so I think you probably write a lot more than a lot of my friends, to be honest, like my other friends. And so, would you say that you kind of just so that we can kind of gauge it? Would you maybe, you know, work on ideas most days, because you do pick up your guitar every day? And and is that like a bit of an organic thing or like a discipline that you have?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a discipline. For sure. I don't, yeah, because I mean, I go for months. Like there is sometimes like after the album, I was pretty burnt out, like too young. It was like a good 3 or 4 months before I touched an instrument or wrote anything. So I wouldn't like call it a discipline, because actually I can't, like, again, like I was saying, I can't force this creativity. So it comes daily, but, you know, at random times I can't be like, okay, at 7 o'clock I'm going to sit down and I'm going to, you know, start being creative. It doesn't work. I like open my laptop and, you know, next minute I'm on the YouTube vortex. So, you know, like it comes, and then I've got to have an idea there that I'm jacked on, you know, that I quickly put down in 30 seconds during the day whilst, like, you know, making the kids some food or getting them to school or, and then just like at some point of the day I'll come and I'll just play, and it won't be, sometimes it's, you know, 20 minutes, sometimes it's 2 hours. But yeah, I think on a regular basis, I'm definitely down in my studio playing something. And sometimes it's not even creative. Sometimes I'm just, you know, like lately it's just practicing piano that turns into me, you know, turning to my guitar and start writing something, but being musical in some aspects for sure.
Is there anything you can say to, you know, songwriters that are earlier in the journey and they're kind of at that vulnerable crossroads of like, oh, I'm starting to share songs to people outside my uncle and auntie now, and like, you know, it's just how can they be encouraged just to push on, you know, in those early stages, which are pretty, man, it takes one negative comment. I feel like one negative thing that one of my family members said just shook me for like a year or two, eh?
Yeah,
and I didn't realize how much it impacted me, but it made me go, like, I'm a shit writer. I'm just gonna go back to bass playing, you know, just like.
Yeah, man. You know, to be honest, there is that the saying where you have to be pretty thick-skinned to be in this industry, and I actually do agree with that. You know, like it's not about suppressing. You know, I'm not talking of like a suppression level. It's just like you just have to know that, you know, not everyone's going to love your music. Hence why, you know, the same reason like why us, we don't like certain kind of music and certain kind of songs. It's like everyone, doesn't matter if you're musical or whatever. It just, you know, you're not going to please everybody. Just like life, you know, you can't please everybody. People are going to hate you regardless. You know, you can be the kindest, most beautiful, humble person, and you know, people are still going to hate you. Yeah. So it's just, you've got to realize that, you know, it's not you, it's them. You know, it's just like, that's one of the biggest things. It's like, you just got to share your music, relentlessly. You just got to do it, and you got to be, you know, just kind of like, what's the word? What is the word? Not unforgiving. There's another word.
Relentless?
Relentless is the other word. Just, you know, just like, you know, there's kind of like, there's no shame about it. It's just like, you just keep giving it to the world. I don't know. There's a word that's just evading my mind right now. So yeah, just keep pushing, keep moving forward.
Yeah, bro. 2 questions. What do you think about your boys?
Yeah, little shits, eh?
Little shits. Yeah, they go all right. Yeah.
Not bad. Oh man, what I think about them. I refined what I think about them.
Dude, we had a moment yesterday where you got a little bit teary thinking about fatherhood, and I love how much you adore your sons, and I think you're very balanced in the way that you discipline. And
yeah, man, they're just like, they are my life. You know, like I couldn't imagine anything without them. You know, it's just like every moment shared with them. You know, I bring them into all my passions. They play music with me. They surf with me. They skate with me.
They come on stage at festivals.
Come on stage. It's just like that. It is one of the best feelings in the world. Is you know, sharing life with those 2 little souls, and the challenges and the reflections and the mirrors they give me. You know, like I'm thankful for everything I get. Absolutely everything they give me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love staying here, man. Like, I love being like a bit of an uncle figure around here, and yeah, it's one of the things that I love about moving to Byron is it close to the boys.
Yeah, they love Uncle Bill.
Yeah, bro. Really, really thankful for these moments, man. And you've become such a great friend, dude. I can't verbalize that enough. And what do you really like about me? No, I'm just joking. Nah, tall poppy. Can't go there, mate.
Bill, no, seriously though, like, you know, I reciprocate everything you're saying, you know. I just like the way our friendship has just blossomed in such a short amount of time, and how we were able to just go to places emotionally and with our vulnerability. Yeah, that I haven't been really had a relationship like it with any other man, you know, and I think that's been our beauty and our strength. I think why we became close so quick is we just felt so comfortable, you know, like weirdly so comfortable with each other, and the things that you've taught me, you know, it's just like, I feel like you've taught me so much. You've been like a mentor as well. And you know, like even our conversations, there's so many like little golden nuggets that I get from you, and you come from such a different background again. And I love where our worlds meet.
Yeah.
You know,
dude.
we meet from these really bizarre places. It's kind of weird that we get along so well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the beauty is. It's like we give each other these kind of like, you know, different perspectives that we just kind of fall into and really love.
Yeah, man. There's a proverb that says it's iron that sharpens iron. And I just fully feel like, I always say to Chrissy, I'm like, dude, babe, hung out with Kyle. I just really feel, you know, I feel heard, inspired, like a companion, you know, and just kind of like fucking frothy as well. And just kind of like, it's good, man. You give a lot of energy to me and to a lot of others. And but yeah, bro, really thankful for your time. And yeah, really excited about this year of being neighbours.
Yeah, bro. So good.
Dude.
Annabelle asked me last night after you left, she was just like, how you feeling? How excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10 about having your bestie close by? And I was just like, I was like a giggly schoolgirl. I was like, oh, it's so fun.
Dude, in like 2 days, like 2 surfs together, just kind of like been eating all your food already. Dude, yeah, we're going to create some awesome music too this year and have some great adventures post-COVID. And so yeah, bro, really appreciate what you do to the world, man. Just loving on humans, on the planet. And we didn't even get there to the eco stuff, but yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, another podcast.
Yeah, love you, bro.
bro.
Hey fam, go and check out Kyle Lionhart's music. The links are in the show notes for his Spotify, YouTube and Instagram. If you like the conversation, please give it a little review and a comment, and see you next week.